It's a snap. Next on Atheist Viewpoint. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Atheist Viewpoint. I'm your co-host, Ron Barrier.
And I'm Dennis Horvitz.
And today's show, we are primarily going to talk about SNAP, which is, Dennis?
The Survivors Network of those abused by priests.
Right, and we're going to get to that because one of the main stories out now is a lawsuit against the Pope himself.
Actually, it's a request for a criminal investigation.
Request for a criminal investigation?
Yes. I'll read the title when you...
All right. Well, just quickly, the last show we were talking about the New York City's religion-free and very successful and moving and emotional 9/11 ceremony that took place on September 11th. And a couple of people, of course, have to write into the local newspaper, where are the clergy? They seem to need the clergy. And one woman wrote, gee, without the clergy, it didn't seem like this, you know, whatever it was. I guess apparently she didn't lose someone or was there directly. But she goes, aren't we one nation under God? And that made me think, well, the obvious answer is to that, no. All right? Even though the Pledge of Allegiance says so, the truth is that is not true. It is not accurate. And I'm just going to take the first 5 minutes or so just to give you a short history of the Pledge of Allegiance, because American citizens are woefully lacking in their understanding of history. They seem to think that under God was always there. Now, this short history I took off the internet by Dr. John W. Bayer, who is he has written a book called The Pledge of Allegiance, A Revised History and Analysis, 2007. And you know, he's I also checked him out, and on the end of this article, he also has you can contact him. So it's John W. Bayer, B-A-E-R. Francis Bellamy, a Baptist minister, wrote the original pledge in August 1892. He was a Christian socialist, which I'm sure the Republicans would love to hear right now. Mm-hmm. And he expressed, he was expressing the ideas of his cousin, Edward Bellamy, who was the American socialist, and he wrote novels Looking Backward in 1888 and Equality in 1897. The pledge was published in the September 8th issue of the Youth's Companion, the leading family magazine and the Reader's Digest of its day. The owner and editor, Daniel Ford, had hired Francis in 1891 as his assistant when Francis was pressured into leaving his Baptist church in Boston because of his socialist sermons. As a member of his congregation, Ford had enjoyed Francis's sermons. Ford later founded the liberal and often controversial Ford Hall Forum located in downtown Boston. Now, his original pledge, and I'm talking about Francis Bellamy now, his original pledge read as follows: I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. He considered placing the word equality, but knew that the state superintendents of education on his committee were against equality for women and African Americans. So already there, the pledge had exclusive language. Right. In 1922 and 1923, the National Flag Conference, under the leadership of the American Legion and Daughters of the American Revolution, changed the pledge's words to my flag. I pledge allegiance to, they changed the words my flag to the flag of the United States. Bellamy disliked the change, but his protest was ignored. Nothing like protesting the originator of something. Wow. And then, here comes under God, my friends. Now, the First Amendment says that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. Well, in 1954, Congress, after a campaign by the Roman Catholic group Knights of Columbus, added the words under God to the pledge. So now the pledge was now a patriotic oath.
Well, that was to
And a
distinguish
public
us from
prayer.
that was to distinguish us from those commie atheists.
Right. It was a political ploy.
Yeah.
So that's where it stands now. You can look up more detail for the history of the pledge. Now, I have refused to say the pledge since it was changed. I don't understand why any American citizen or any potential citizen should have to jump hurdles and pledge allegiance to the Knights of Columbus, Roman Catholic God of the Vatican, which is another country, in order to pledge allegiance to the flag of our own country. You know, so because of that paradox, that dichotomy, I have never recited the pledge, and I never will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. And we have the Supreme Court to support us in that.
That's right.
Because of a case in the 40s, I didn't have a chance to look it up. But
It was with
Jehovah's
Witnesses.
Okay, if you look up Supreme Court Jehovah's Witnesses, they refused to pledge allegiance to a flag because of their religious concept of idolatry, and the Supreme Court agreed. So all these current laws by these petty sheriff of Nottingham politicians around the country that, oh, schools should start every morning with the pledge and do this and everything, they are themselves in direct defiance of the law of the United States as set forth through the Supreme Court that you don't have to. All right? So if you get a chance, refuse to. Let's get to SNAP. And Dennis, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay. I am, as many of you probably know, I'm a member of, in addition to being a member of American Atheists, I'm a member of New York City Atheists. And I have, in the capacity as a representative of New York City Atheist and as an individual, I represent the group, New York City Atheists, at SNAP meetings. And again, to reiterate, SNAP stands for Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. Since its inception, because the latest I guess news items or announcements from the group is that just because it has the word priests in the title of the organization doesn't mean that they're exclusive of anybody. So before I even go any further, I just want to say that if you have been sexually abused as a child or even as an adult by anyone in a position of authority, whether it's a priest or a public psychiatrist, whoever it is, contact snapnetwork.org, and they can refer you. Now, recently, at the beginning of September of 2011, when we're doing this, SNAP, in association with the Center for Constitutional Rights, I will read the title, filed a complaint in The Hague, and I'll read the actual title. The victim's communication pursuant to Article 15 of the Roman Statute requesting investigation and prosecution of high-level Vatican officials for rape and other forms of sexual violence as crimes against humanity and torture as a crime against humanity. Now, unless you've been living in a cave, you are probably aware that especially over the last couple of years,
right, last decade,
but most especially over the last couple of years, the issue of clergy abuse, and not just in the Catholic Church, but across the board, has exploded. This thing is huge.
Well, we're finding out about it.
Yeah, it's just
I
coming.
mean, obviously,
it's been
we
going
know
on.
It's gone on for centuries.
Yeah, it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened just within the last couple of years, but it's been rising to the surface.
Right.
So, what has happened is that SNAP and this other group and the Center for Constitutional Rights has filed a criminal complaint in The Hague. Now, there are various opinions about whether this will work or not. Usually when complaints are filed with The Hague or charges are requested, it's usually by a government. And this is the first request of this kind, I guess, by an independent organization. And I have, the actual filing is 84 pages, which I obviously we won't even begin to have enough time to go through. but I brought, I will read you, just to show you some of the ground that's being covered. I'll read you some of the table of contents, but let me just say this, that this is in regard to not just actions in the United States, it's regards to clergy abuse by, that was covered up. Perpetrators were protected and in fact enabled by the Catholic Church according to this filing. In Belgium, Canada, Germany, Italy, the United States, the Netherlands, Mexico.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten into South America and
Yeah,
Africa
yeah,
yet,
right. And in part of there were apparently 20,000 pieces of additional documentation. And I will just, again, I have a list that I will describe it in general, but
before you do, I'd just like to mention
sure.
the Vatican spokesman, Reverend Federico Lombardi, declined requests for comments.
Right.
But Cardinal Crescenzio Sepe of Naples, now I think isn't Naples, I think one of the most crime-ridden cities in Italy, former head of the Vatican's missionary office, which is good, told the Vatican Insider website that the filing was, and I quote, or at least they quote, the usual anti-Catholic attempt that tends in some way to obscure the image of the Church. To which somebody wrote a comment, obscure? No. Clarify? Yes. How can, and don't strike you, go to the next thing, but I would like people to think about how could the fact that these guys have covered up for their priests be an attempt at anti-Catholic obscurity or obscureness? It's ridiculous.
Considering the Catholics,
it's anti-child rape. It's not anti-Catholic.
That's right. Considering Catholics were the victims.
Yes.
You know, I'm going to again. A lot of this has when it first happened in the United States. Of course, the Church said that it was an American problem, and then they said it was a media problem. And
it also said that the Vatican lawyers have argued that the local bishops do not act as agents of the Pope.
Right.
They do not receive their salaries from Rome,
so
nor work on Vatican property. But that has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
They are direct agents. They're hired and appointed by the Vatican.
Right. So I just want to say, and by the way, one of the people who participated in as an expert witness was someone that I have actually interviewed on my other show. Father Thomas Doyle.
Mention that show, by the way.
Well, it's New York. My other show, one of my other shows, is New York City Atheists Live on Tape, and I attend SNAP conventions in that capacity as a representative. And I had a great interview with him, and I'm trying to get Tom Doyle to come up this way, and he has said, you know, that he would love to swing by, and hopefully we can get him here.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great.
Anyway, but I just want to mention Tom Doyle because I have interviewed him, and he has just been a groundbreaker and an expert witness in testifying. He is a canon lawyer who, of course, was punished for whistleblowing. In any case, but more
trying to expose a truth.
Yeah, more. But basically, he was commissioned by. He was working with the Vatican Embassy in Washington, D.C., and during the administration of John Paul II, Pope John Paul II, and apparently there was an issue in New Orleans diocese of this particular priest who has, over the years, had apparently molested hundreds of children, and Tom Doyle was asked to investigate just to see in the United States what was going on. And he started out believing, just as I believed, and a lot of people still believe, that, yeah, it's a couple of rotten apples in the barrel. Well, he found out that it wasn't just the rotten apples in the barrel, it was the barrel. It was a systemic abuse and cover-up of abuse.
Right.
And
now, we're not saying that all priests are
no,
guilty of abuse, but those who were protected by their superiors.
Because protecting the church and its integrity and its money and all that stuff was more important than children.
Of course.
And of course he reported this back to the Vatican, which they didn't want to hear, and he was subsequently shoved aside. So he's a very courageous person, just a very intellectual, wonderful person to talk to on a number of subjects, and I'm hoping that at some point we can get him here as a guest. In any case, I just want to mention that. But now, amongst the pieces of evidence that were submitted along with this complaint were reports that were made in Ireland. And by the way, the Catholic Church in Ireland is going through serious meltdown.
Oh.
Serious meltdown. The Vatican has withdrawn its ambassador, and I think
Ireland has.
no, Vatican has withdrawn its ambassador to Ireland, and Ireland has, I'm not sure now whether they've actually withdrawn their ambassador from the Vatican. I think they have, at least temporarily, and if the ambassador goes back, basically it's the ambassador to Italy which will be handling the Vatican situation, handling relations with the Vatican, which is a major...
And Ireland was one of the most devoutly...
Absolutely.
Catholic nations on the planet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when Ireland resumes diplomatic relations with the Vatican, it'll probably be through their ambassador to Italy, which is a major snub, because something like a principality like the Vatican gets its own, should by rights get its own ambassador. But anyway, I digress. Part of the information that is being submitted in this criminal complaint are commissions, studies that have been done on abuse of children, and I will again. I have pages and pages of all these different commission reports, and this is, by the way, what I'm going to mention now is not even about individuals. I am going to mention a couple of individuals, okay, because they're like, for instance, I'm going to go over what they discuss about Ratzinger, Pope Benedict. But anyway, here are just some of the reports: the Ryan report from Ireland, the Murphy report from Ireland, the Cloyne report from Ireland, which is called the Murphy 2, because Judge Yvonne Murphy in the Irish court basically
they had those famous laundries that they were
the Magdalene laundries. That's covered in, I think, one of these reports.
That's a film.
Yeah.
I think, isn't it the Magdalene sisters?
That's right.
Yes.
The Magdalene sisters. And so there's 3 or 4 right there from Ireland. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, there's about 12 from different jurisdictions in the United States: Westchester County, Suffolk County, and Boston, the Boston area, New Hampshire. Again, a couple of them from Boston. It's also the lawsuit Gregory Ford et al. Versus Bernard Cardinal Law from Arizona.
Wasn't there one in California too? With
Mahoney,
Cardinal Mahoney there.
That
he was pretty much a dirtbag about this.
Yeah, I think that may have come later. I'm trying to find that. That may have been covered under the individual situation. I don't know, but Arizona, Maine, there's 3 or 4 here through in the Philadelphia diocese alone. Hamilton County of Cincinnati, Ohio, a settlement. Then there's the Council of Europe report, and as you mentioned before, there's the Magdalene Laundries report. That was included as a fall. I think that was included as somehow included with the Ryan report.
A lot of people don't know that from Great Britain too. They shipped orphans over to Australia to work in their parsonages, building and child labor.
Yeah, I'm getting to that. There's from Munich, the Freising report. I'm going to have the Adriaensens report, which is from Holland, from the Dutch Commission. And then there's the John. This is not actually. This is like even before this recent John Jay. There's the John Jay 1 report. It was done in 2004. The John Jay report, it was done last year. the Winter Commission from Canada, the Nolan Report, which involves England, and the Cumberledge Commission Report, also from England.
Really? So all these publicity stunts.
Yeah. All
like
these,
the Vatican is
right? All they're just making, all this stuff just made up to bash the church.
These are all publicity.
And again,
stunts.
I'm not even going to, except for one or two others. There's even more to this, in terms of specific investigations that were done about individuals. And this report includes, amongst other things, church structure and guiding policies related to child sexual claims, instructions, the famous Crimen Solicitationis, which was first issued in 1922, and it grants the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, otherwise known as the CDF, and basically,
which was the old Inquisition office.
Yeah, and it basically it tells them how to handle reports of this, and it was reissued updated in 1962.
Well, wasn't there also a letter a few years ago that was found in the archives where they pretty much instructed priests not to contact
I don't
civil
know.
authorities?
Yeah, I don't know if that was the Sacramentorum Sanctitatis Tutela was issued in May 2001 by the CDF, the Council for the Doctrine of Faith, Commission, the Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith, pursuant to the apostolic letter issued by Pope John Paul II. And it says, under this instruction, after investigation of claims at the local level, all claims of abuse must be referred to the CDF. In other words, this is basically
keep it internal.
Keep it internal. And okay, I'm going to.
And they keep it internal for a good reason. They know they can get over on the parents, on the children. There's a fear factor. There's I mean, I remember even when I went to Catholic school, Dennis, and you're sitting in the first, second, or third grade, if a priest walked into a room, you became quiet. You deferred to his authority. If a Monsignor walked in, that was even more. If a bishop walked in, this was like getting hit by lightning.
Yeah, it's like God.
Yes, and they know that they have this effect on people. So by keeping it internal, they can intimidate these families.
Right. Now, there's really just a lot here. I mean, what I've got is just a fraction of this 84-page list of charges, and so we're just not going to have time to do it. And,
no, of course not. Now, the president of SNAP, Barbara Blaine, is she still the president?
Oh, yes.
Well, you know, she's denying, of course, that this complaint is a publicity stunt. She goes, we have submitted 20,000 pages of evidence that fully document all the crimes in a way that meets the criteria of the ICC in The Hague.
Yeah.
Our attorneys have done due diligence. I really doubt they have 20,000 pages of publicity stunts.
No, when you have report after report after report, when you've got 20 to 25 separate commission reports from like I said, United States, Canada, Austria, Germany, England, that's not a publicity stunt.
No.
Where they've found criminal wrongdoing, but and again, there are just so many people that are being investigated, and there's so many complaints about individuals that, again, we would need a whole season's worth of shows just to go through that. But there's one which is kind of if you followed this, and by the way, you can follow this by going to abusetracker.org, and it has a list of various articles put together every day from all around the world. Abusetracker.org.
Oh, all right, very interesting.
In any case, one of the articles has been about Ratzinger,
Ratzinger.
Pope Benedict XVI, as a cardinal. It's one of the people that he's been accused of protecting, and he's mentioned in this complaint, and it says another case in which abuse and knowledge thereof spanned decades as children were being sexually assaulted is the case of Father Lawrence Murphy at the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. Murphy sexually abused at least 200 deaf minor boys at a school where he was chaplain and had been denounced to the Vatican for this in 1956, but there was no action taken. In 1997, Murphy was convicted by a canonical tribunal by the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, convicted and sentenced to dismissal.
Oh, how crushing.
And by the way, in all fairness, the bishops and the cardinal, I think, in that area, begged the Pope, I think it was initially Pope John Paul, to get rid of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So the decision was appealed to the CDF. The Archbishop wanted to urge the CDF to ratify the dismissal. It was appealed.
But that's a pattern.
Yeah, and so Ratzinger basically decided not to complete he didn't even want to go through the appeal process, and he just dropped it. And there was a letter, and we don't have much time, but anyway, Ratzinger let this guy die a priest in good standing, and he was buried with all the honors of a priest.
You know, we're down to under our final minute. Remember, the ACORN organization in the United States was defunded by Congress based on doctored videotapes, okay? Here, in this case, you have 20,000 pages of documentation, and people continue to support this organization. No one from ACORN raped children. No one from ACORN tried to cover up rape of children. But the Vatican does that in spades. So this is a tragic situation. I'm sure we could do several shows on it, Dennis. Right. If you're interested in more information on this, abusetracker.org
or snapnetwork.org.
Snapnetwork.org.
Right.
So we're down to our last 30 seconds. Again, we'd like to thank you for joining Dennis Horvitz and myself, Ron Barry, here on the Atheist Viewpoint, brought to you by American Atheists. Please visit our website at www.atheist.org. Many opportunities for you there to express yourself and to join with others who are like-minded, not that we think alike, but that we realize just how much of a scam religion is, and that an organization like the Vatican and the Roman Catholic Church should not be afforded any respect at all, because that is a 2,000-year-old scam. Again, on behalf of Dennis and myself, we hope to see you next week on the Atheist Viewpoint.